Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guest on this next interview. The unveiling of Ursula von der Leyen's new European Commission team has been delayed to next Tuesday, following Slovenia's last-minute change of candidate. Gender balance has also been a key issue, with von der Leyen pushing for more female candidates after many countries had ignored her request. Now, the final lineup of the commissioners will shape the EU's policy direction going forward. So, joining us today on TVP World to discuss this is Piotr Kaczyński, EU expert at the Grimmig Foundation. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Thank you for having me.
So let's first talk about this delay. How do you think this is going to affect the timeline for confirming the new commission team?
Probably the commission will be delayed until probably December because, well, if you look at the last commissions, pretty much all those commissions never started on time. The time should be 1st November, and pretty much everybody was late.
Right. Do you think this is going to hurt the credibility of the EU Commission going forward if this, like you mentioned, it's never on time, and there's also a lot of countries with their own political turmoil involved?
Not really, because, for example, you know, the biggest, who was the most late? Barroso. Barroso in 2009, elections 2009, the new commission was in February 2010. So that was the biggest delay.
Right.
So for now, von der Leyen is okay.
Right, but what about these individual countries' interests when it comes to grabbing some of the positions? Do you think that the countries who submitted their candidacy later will be dealt weaker hand, or do you think that's also not going to affect much?
I will have to see, because for now what we are hearing only gossips. And the gossips are saying pretty much everybody wants something about economy. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to have something about economy, right? So we need to see, this is the first step, or maybe second step. This step is about getting 27 people. And when von der Leyen is going to see who are those 27 people, she's going to say, okay, this is what we have and this is what we want. How to match it together. And this is for von der Leyen. This is her job.
Right, so there's still a whole process that needs to be, have to go through before these decisions are finally made. So there are a little bit of complexities when it comes to choosing these candidates for individual countries itself. Do you think with some of the candidates that's already, most of them already been submitted, do you see the European Commission staying on course of what we've seen before, or do you think there might be a new direction taking shape?
Oh, it's very likely there will be a new direction for the Commission, because the policies are changing. The biggest change is definitely about two things. First is the security issue. Security issue is much more important than 5 years ago. So there probably will be a commissioner for security and or defense, and we'll see who is going to be this. There's no big names for this, so let's wait and see about this. Then there are some other topics, but the second biggest change is about what's going to happen with the Green Deal and the green transition. This is a big question out there.
And there's also, the issue of gender parity, right? We were discussing earlier that originally there were 7 candidates that's female. Now it's been brought up to 11. Do you see that changing anytime soon?
Absolutely, because look, European Commission in 2019 not only got a parity in the executive, right? There were like 4 people in the executive of the Commission, 2 ladies and 2 gentlemen, but in the entire Commission, out of 27 people, there were 14 guys and 13 women. So that was pretty much quite okay. And then 5 years later, after all those battles about having a parity on corporate boards, etc. Now we are going to take a step back? No way. So von der Leyen needs to have at least 12, if not 13, women on board.
Where do you think the original reluctancy from these other European countries to submit female candidates came from? Because, this is actually, before new female candidates were being added, this is actually one of the lowest in, representation of women in the initial phase of the submission.
Could be, but at the same time, it's a match between von der Leyen and the heads of governments. So she, in July, said, please send me 2 candidates. and only one government did it. So only Bulgaria proposed 2 candidates. So everybody was basically saying, it doesn't matter what she says. This is our decision. So look at Poland, for example. Here it was a small battle, or at least discussion. Who should nominate the Polish commissioner? We're talking about Polish commissioner. No, there's no such a thing as Polish commissioner. It's a commissioner for something coming from Poland. He or she will be a commissioner for, let's say, agriculture, like the 5 years ago. But there are some other topics. They are also important for us. So it's not going to be a commissioner for a country. It's a commissioner for a portfolio. And this is the biggest question about portfolios, not about the countries. Because at the end of the day, it's very important who is doing the Green Deal, who is doing the security issues, and how they are going to do this. And there are some battles about this. For example, the Spanish candidate, Ms. Ribera, she wants, and the Spanish government wants, her to be commissioner for Green Deal. And there are some people who are saying absolutely not. She's too far left for this topic. What will von der Leyen do? We'll have to wait and see about those dilemmas, because she needs to also take care of what's going to happen with the Italian commissioner, Mr. Fito, who is probably the biggest, he's the hottest name out there on this market for now.
All right, you just mentioned something I think gives a really good perspective when we look at these positions. It should be, looked at as a portfolio, not a Polish commissioner or the Italian commissioner, rather like what is in here for his position. However, do you think that the country of origin will still affect the commissioner's day-to-day job when it comes to carrying out the interests of their own country, and hence the reason why many countries are vying for a more economic position?
Well, yes or no. Usually, the countries are trying to get an important portfolio. This is their perspective. And if you want an economic portfolio, it's a strong signal domestically. We want something. We want something important. It's pure PR, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it is that particular economic portfolio or not. I'll give you an example, because you ask about relationship between home country and delivery. Right. There's another thing. Timing and issues. If you look at Commissioner Bieńkowska, who is a commissioner coming from Poland, taking dossier of industry, entrepreneurship, and then follow-up was Thierry Breton. And if you look at Bieńkowska dossier and Thierry Breton dossier, well, Thierry Breton is much more important than what Bieńkowska did. What does it telling us? Bieńkowska was doing a decent job, but the timing of AI issues, the big tech issues or questions, they were not during Bieńkowska mandate, but Thierry Breton mandate.
All right, that's true. Things can crop up, and it does really matter a lot who's in this position at the time to deal with it. So in this new kind of nominations already being submitted, in your opinion, what are some of the key challenges that the new team might be facing down in the future? Like you mentioned, that might crop up.
The very big question out there is collegiality. This is the biggest question out there for at least 15 years now. The Commission did not have great internal infighting. There was some way of getting presidentialism across. So von der Leyen over the last 5 years was very top-down person and personality managing the College of Commissioners. So what will it be like next time round? It's a big question, because for the first time in history, we are going to have a number of commissioners who are getting into the Commission with far-right government support. And it's not only a Hungarian commissioner who is asking to return. This is quite interesting what will happen with the hearings in the European Parliament with the Hungarian commissioner. But the big question is about Mr. Fito. It is about Mr. Vojkstra from the Netherlands as well.
Right. You just mentioned the rise of a far-right party and some of the candidates being into the commission. How do you see that affecting the composition or the policy of the new commission going forward?
Huge question, because this is particularly and pointedly a question about Mr. Fito And there was a conversation saying that Mr. Fito, Italian future potential commissioner, would be one of those executive vice president. If he's going to be there, executive vice president of the European Commission, coming from ECR, from far-right government in Italy, that's a huge signal of what kind of policies will we have in the European Union, coming from entire Commission and from von der Leyen as well. So this is a big question for von der Leyen, what kind of portfolio Mr. Fito will get, and whether, if he gets top and important dossier, whether then von der Leyen gets a support for her commission in the European Parliament, because that's what she needs as well. It's not only that it's given that she was voted in July and now she puts together her commissioners and it's a done deal. No, there is still this huge question whether Parliament will vote her through and her college through.
Right, so it's still a long ways ahead. There's a statement that I also want to pick your brains on, because the German government has recently announced reinstatement of a temporary border control on all the country's land borders starting Monday. Now, officials in Berlin also says that it's an attempt to fight irregular migration and protect public from threats like Islamic extremism. Well, Germany has hardened its stance on migration in recent years, and the government is also trying to retake the initiative after support of the AfD party. Well, the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has made a statement saying that we will ask other countries that will be affected by this decision by Berlin in the coming hours to urgently consult on action on the EU on this issue with all the neighbors of the German state. That's what Tusk has mentioned. What's your take on this the statement?
I'll be cynical on this issue. There's elections in one of the London on 22nd of September, and this is why this decision was taken in Berlin right now. Because this decision in Berlin is not affecting anything except for the elections in Brandenburg. Because we don't have big flows of migrants right now in September 24. What happened is for the last 9 years, there was a big influx of migrants into Germany. So this is what happened in Germany, and this is probably what is the part of the problem within Germany. Now, putting controls on the borders right now, it's just it's a cover-up for Mr. Scholz ahead of elections in Brandenburg. So Tusk is right to call on explanations, because it affects business, it affects tourism, it affects pretty much almost everybody.
All right, but we do see, like you mentioned earlier, that the far-right parties are on a rise. And one of the issues that they're most vocal about that people seem to have resonated with is the immigration and migration issue. So, of course, the more cynical side of it is perhaps looking at the current electorate, saying that this might be what they want. But is there also an actual issue that needs to be addressed in the same manner going forward?
It's an issue that is unmanageable issue out there. It's linked to migration flows that have been happening to Europe over the last 50 years. There are some people who will give you very simple answers. For example, why did Brexit happen? Because of Polish migrants into the UK. It's only partial true to it, but it is very important to remember that big migratory flows impact the general public perception and perspective on everything. And this is what is happening in Germany right now. This is what happened in France, in Italy, in other places. But the reflection has to be that the people have arrived. They are here. We have to find out some kind of way to live together and solve those problems together. So it's a question about security, it's a question about safety, it's about a question of integration of different migratory groups into society. So there are those questions on the table, and they should be definitely on the table to discuss them openly within the democratic debates that the nations have. And Poland's also not escaping those discussions.
Right, and it's definitely a large issue to unpack instead of kind of just make very broad and easy statements that to be tackled easily with the electorate. Thank you so much for breaking all of this down. Really appreciate it, and thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.